All right, welcome everyone to Leader's Edge. It is a beautiful day outside, you guys. Spring in Michigan. There's nothing quite like it. You say spring in the South, and some days I don't know that they can tell the difference between any of their seasons, but the seasons of Michigan are they just resonate differently, especially when you've been in so much cold. So I hope everybody is doing well and excited to be in the growth zone today. As the Leader's Edge always follows a format, this format, because I am alternating back and forth. I'm going to teach for about 20 minutes today because I want you guys to have a firm understanding of how I look at the Optimized Leader Workbook. We're going to be going through session 5. But I want to remind you guys, it isn't about sticking with where I'm at. I'm teaching this because when I teach it, it then has a stamp in time that you can go back to it. You'll have this program for the rest of your life. You can go back to it and catch the recording if you're about to go into session 5 again. And I firmly do believe that once you see the power of the workbook is something that you can use for the rest of your career. I know I'm going to. There are things that I will improve in the workbook as time goes on. I'm working on them right now because that's kind of what I do. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in this lesson today, because that'll be a distinction of leadership that I do want us to make sure that we see when to improve and when to stick to what you're working on. So again, if you haven't cracked open the workbook, that's the decision you make is to crack it open and commit to it. If you're still working on trying to figure out session 2, that's okay. Session 2 is where you put a foundation of leading yourself. And anytime that you show up in any of these lessons, you get to ask questions based on where you're at. I'm like, this isn't about just asking questions based on what I'm teaching for the day, but getting the help and the support you need to move forward from where you're at. And that is even going to be a talking point in today's lesson. So I'm going to start off with the teaching and then we'll go into it. As I specified, the session that we're on in the Optimized Leader Workbook is session 5. And I'm going to start off with a powerful statement. Most leaders don't have a leadership problem. I'm going to say that again. Most leaders don't have a leadership problem. Most leaders, in my opinion, have a follow-through problem. I think that most people out there know what to do. I just don't think that people execute long enough to see the results. There's too many distractions. There's too many changes. There's much innovation out there, and it distracts people from sticking with their plan long enough. And the gap between knowing and doing, that's where frustration, if you just put your hands out in front of you, you can see your left hand and you can see your right hand. That's the knowing and doing gap. The left hand is the knowing what to do. The right hand is actually doing it. And if there's a gap there, if you can't close the gap, it's a bigger gap. It depends how big it is. That's where frustration, burnout, and underperformance live. You know what to do and you're not doing it. You get frustrated. You get burnt out under the pressure of it all, and underperformance has its own subset of consequences to it. So today is about closing the gap. That's what session 5 is about closing the gap with a system, using the system. When I want to methodically go through the workbook, I broke them into parts. So part 1 is about leadership reflection. Most leaders don't need more information. Look behind me. I don't need more information than I already have. I have read all the books that are behind me, some of them upwards of 10 and 15 and maybe 20 times or more, especially the 15 laws of growth. So it's not about more information. I don't need more information. What I need is more honesty about where I'm actually at. And I'm gonna use myself as a reference point, but I'm also gonna use each of you just by talking in general statements. And I have a couple stories that I want to share with you guys right now about people that are not honest about where they're actually at, and it's the consequences of it are absolutely devastational. So we're talking about leadership reflection. We don't need more information. We need more honesty, but reflection creates awareness. Uh, Leaders need to slow down and reflect on what's working, what's not working, what's missing. Those type of simple questions to create the awareness and the honesty of where they're at. So reflection creates awareness. When you have awareness, it creates ownership. Here's how I look at it. My wife is in real estate. I used to be in real estate years ago. And a if a seller puts a house on the market, they put the house on the market and they have to, by law, fill out a seller's disclosure. If they've lived in the house, they have to tell honestly what they know about the house. Let's say a buyer comes along, they put the house under contract. Once the house is under contract, the buyer reserves the right to do their inspection, and they find out that there's mold in the attic. And they let the seller know, I'm not moving forward unless you fix the mold in the attic. And the seller says, I'm not fixing the mold in the attic. The seller is in a checkmate place. They're screwed either way. You either fix the mold in the attic or you have to go fill out your seller's disclosure again saying, I now know I have mold in the attic. The reason I tell that story is because reflection and leadership creates awareness. Awareness creates ownership. Once you know that you are frustrated, once you know that you are burnt out, once you know you have a knowing that you are underperforming or living in underperformance, then your ownership should create change. Anybody that knowingly says, I'm working on my leadership and the leadership of others around me, and doesn't accept the reality of where they're at, doesn't take ownership seriously, and the ownership doesn't create the changes that they're working on, they're fooling themselves about this thing called leadership. And I'm sorry, but I see it all the time everywhere where leaders don't want to take ownership. Let's say it simply. If your results are off, it's a capacity gap, a leadership gap, or a systems gap. It's as simple as that. What the problem is knowing and doing. Until you tell the truth about where you are, you can't build where you want to go. That's the reality of leadership. Until you tell yourself the truth, and I have a story to tell in about a minute that is gonna really, really hammer it home. And I've heard it from two different industries, two different people recently. Let's jump into it. Part two of this, the flow of the workbook, session 5 workbook is team strengths and gaps. Before you go too far into thinking, well, this is about my team, you have to reflect and say, am I on the team? It's not just about everyone else when you do this. It's about me and the rest of the teammates and what are our strengths and what are our gaps. You don't have a difficult team. You're not difficult yourself. You might be difficult to yourself, but you don't have a difficult team. You have a team that you don't fully understand yet. And some people don't fully understand themselves. They may say, yes, 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 I do, I do, I do. But then they go back and repeat some of the bad habits. That's what we're trying to talk about here in session 5 is really getting into what are the strengths, what are the gaps, and once I have awareness, what am I going to do about it? I'm working with an executive team. This executive team probably is responsible for somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'm going to say, 750 million in sales annually in the company they're in. This is a big company with a high-end ticket sale. And there's two individuals of this 5-person team. One individual is mad because another individual isn't doing what he wants him to do. The CEO is mad at a VP, and the VP is mad at the CEO. And it comes down to basic misunderstanding and poor leadership on both their parts. They don't fully understand each other yet. They don't understand the success image or vision of what they're trying to accomplish. There's not empowerment, there's not check-ins. It's just sitting, at a distance and saying, he's being difficult. The problem with this is I do see that it will cost the company somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to part ways. And when I'm saying, I heard it from a different industry person recently. I said, what does turnover cost you? And this person, in a completely separate industry says, turnover costs us anywhere from $5,000 immediately all the way up to $750,000 for a high-end specialized person in their business. But turnover has a dollar amount to it. And if it's based on a simple misunderstanding between people, we don't understand the person enough, or they don't understand us enough, that's where the gap is created. People, I don't think are broken. I think they're different. I think I'm different in how I approach business, how I approach leadership than all of you. Each of you is different than me, and it doesn't make me right or you wrong. It just creates awareness. The disc is the lens by which we try to better and better understand what's going on and better position a person, their strengths, to suit the company well. That's what leadership is all about. Strengths, when they're misused, expose themselves as weaknesses. That's what this session is all about, is putting the right people on the bus in the right seats to get the outcome that the role is requiring of them that will generate the best ROI. You don't lead people the way you prefer. You lead people the way they need. I'm going to say that again. You don't lead people the way you prefer. I'm the leader and I'm going to do this and this and this and this. No, you go to the person, and this is where the principle of leading others is so often misconstrued. You lead them the way they need to be led, based on their personality type, based on their skill sets, based on their desire for success and what it looks like to them. And again, it's going to take care, it's going to take candor, it's going to take love, it's going to take tough love. It is not easy, but we can simplify it so that we make sure we understand doing it right is the essential ingredient. Team strengths and gaps has to be understood, because if it's not, as a leader in charge of people, that will create an even bigger gap. Part number 3 of the workbook, it's a skills gap versus standards gap. Your people aren't underperforming. You're not underperforming. I'm not underperforming for 10 different reasons. It's one of 2 reasons. You don't know how to get the results, or you don't want to get the results. You don't know how, or you don't want to. The skill gap, you don't know how to get the results, is a training problem. The skill gap is a training problem. The standards gap is an accountability problem. Leaders confuse those two on a regular basis. And it's frustrating for me to see, because if you can make sure that you see which it is, when you see it, you know how to fix it. If it's a standards issue, you try to raise the standards or they leave the team. If it's a skill issue, you try to improve the skill. But when I'm saying improve the skill, even that, if the person or participant is unwilling to improve themselves, they're going to self-select themselves off the team. Now, I'm not here to, say hurry up and turnover, because I already said turnover can cost you $500,000 to $750,000 depending on the skill set of the person. When we're talking 750, just so you guys know, we're talking about dentists, we're talking about doctors. That costs a lot of money for attorneys to turn over in a company. So the higher the skill set, the more specialized, the more expensive it is to turn them over. But we can close the gap by understanding, is it a knowledge and skill gap, or is it a standards gap, and is it an accountability? If you treat standards type problems like a skill problem, you'll stay stuck. If you treat a standards problem like a skill problem, you're going to stay stuck. If you feel stuck right now, you likely have standards problems. Because if you have if you, one, you hire right, and two, you have an ongoing training base, which it should be that way from a systematic standpoint. Everybody should become consciously aware of what they're trying to improve upon. Consciously aware says that they think about it and they have things that they're working on developing. Then you have a skills program. But if they repeatedly don't want to do it, you now know, treat it like it is. Treat it for what it is, which is a standards issue. Part number four, protecting your self leadership or leadership of self plan. If you don't protect your growth, your schedule's going to destroy it. You guys all know it. I see some heads nodding. If you don't protect your growth, and when I say protecting growth, I'm talking about really putting boundaries up. I'm making sure that I'm conscious every day, conscious, not subconscious, not oblivious, but absolutely conscious of what my image of success for that day looks like. Each morning, it's a routine and a ritual that I go through. Each morning, my success drivers are goals. It's a routine, it's a ritual. I look at those and I get real conscious. I look at the activities that I have and I try to figure out which activities am I doing that are going to move me to the image of success that I have. And if I'm not, like what values is going to take? What habits am I paying attention to? If I'm not doing that first thing in the morning, then the schedule the rest of the day is going to destroy me. It's going to destroy me based on time, energy, and boundaries. Those are the things that we waste the most of. Time and energy. We don't place the right energy on the right activity, and we don't do the right activities at the right time because we don't have boundaries. We have to protect ourselves first. Put your mask on first before you're going to have somebody else say, "Can you help me?" Well, I can't help you. Your calendar tells you the truth about your priorities. That's a fact. That is not something we can argue. Your calendar, if your checkbook, if you revealed it to me and showed me how you spent your money, I'll show you your priorities. If you show me your calendar and you show me how you spent your time, I'll show you your priorities. And if it's always putting out fires and always helping other people under the disguise of I'm a servant leader, but you don't get results yourself, then you're fooling yourself about what leadership is. Part five, leadership strategy builder is what's next in session five. Most leaders don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they lack having a clear strategy. This is the number one thing. I had a company yesterday ask me, this company is all over the United States. It is tied to the Planet Fitness chain. And we're doing a deeper round into crucial conversations because I think that is the most underutilized skill set that is out there in America today. People don't know how to have difficult conversations. And after that, she said, what would you recommend us to lean into in the fall with you? I said, absolutely 100%. I'm all in on strategic planning, not just for the business. The business has to have a strategic plan, but the strategic plan for every position, every role in the company. Because the inner capacity assessment is telling me that when somebody is overwhelmed and burnt out, it's because they don't have a plan. It tells me that. I've been the biggest benefactor of the inner capacity assessment because it tells me what the real problem is. And a lot of times I'll see somebody that's got 2 or 3 point higher in energy, but I'll see that the clarity, the structure, the stability, the boundaries that we're looking for people to have in place. They don't have a plan on how to do their role to the success they're supposed to, and it burns them out, and that's why their energy goes down. I didn't think that's the way it was going to be when I started. I also think that if somebody has a plan and the boss comes in and says, "Hey, I got to tell you that we're going to make some changes," and an employee has a plan, but they can't ever get to their plan because of the changes the boss is making, it's called change fatigue. When somebody is fatigued by change, they burn out because they don't know they're supposed to do. And that's going on a lot because people are afraid they're going to miss out on the latest innovative idea or change. So strategy is where you focus. Strategy is where you focus. Nothing else matters. Not everything matters equally. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So the strategy dictates that these are the priorities for you to drive, and you could be speaking to yourself or you could be speaking to a teammate. Tie everything that you can to clarity. Clarity creates alignment, and alignment creates results. If you have a crystal clear image of success, a vision of success in your mind, and the people around you are, and all of the activity are aligned to that image of success, then you will get the results you're looking for. It's natural law. The problem is if the leader doesn't have clarity, doesn't repeat the vision, there's not alignment, then the reality is the results don't connect. Activity without strategy is just disguised as chaos. Activity without strategy is just disguised as chaos. It's chaos every day. We put out fires every day. Part 6 of the session 5 is the 30-day leadership execution plan. Leaders don't lose because they aim too high. They lose because they don't stay consistent long enough. 30 days is the focus window. If we can't stay the course for 30 days without wanting to make changes, we're in a lot of trouble. And that's what I keep seeing over and over and over again in a lot of leadership situations, a lot of companies. They're focused on big sweeping moves. Here's what I'd like leaders to really learn. Small, consistent actions built over time. Small, consistent actions built over time. Do this every day. Do this every day for 30 days. And let's figure out what it looks like after 30 days. I think execution is far greater than ideas. Everybody comes with a new idea of what they should be doing. So nobody does anything because we're still in the execution or the idea phase. I'm the biggest. I love ideas, you guys. I come up with ideas all the time. I am 100% focused on every area of my life. What does the execution need to look like? Every area of my life. And am I perfect with it? Hell no. But I'm focused on execution because it is far greater than the ideas I can create. If I can't get through one idea long and don't stick with it long enough, how am I ever going to get to the result? So consistency beats intensity every time. We know it, but we don't practice consistency. Consistency takes a long time to gain the reputation of being consistent. One day, one slip up, and you're no longer consistent. Part 7, I think it's the last part of the parts of session 5, is early results check. If you don't measure it, you'll lie to yourself about it. If you don't measure your food and your macros, you'll lie to yourself about how much you ate. If you don't measure your exercise, you'll lie to yourself about how much movement you got. If you don't measure how many times you did a certain activity, whether you're in sales, whether you're a coach, whether you're a hygienist in a dental firm, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't measure it, you're going to turn out to lie to yourself about how many times you did it. Early wins build momentum. If we're saying stick with something for 30 days and we get a win on day 3 and a win on day 7 and a win on day 17, That's what creates momentum. Momentum is a great exaggerator. It is so awesome when we can create momentum in something because momentum then makes us feel confident and better about it, and it will breed more success. So measure the success, see where your wins came from. Don't forget about them after they happen because you can look at all your losses and things will get better. Second thing that I want to say about the early results check, I'm going to contradict myself for a hot second. Adjust quickly. And I'm going to define myself. I want us to learn to stick with something for 30 days. But if you know it's not working after 30 days, there's something about your intuition and your experience that's telling you it's not working. You should pivot. You don't need to keep going the wrong direction and somebody cheer you on, keep going, you're doing awesome, when it's not going to produce a result in 6 months. You have to adjust a little bit quicker than that. After 30 days, you start your adjustment cue. And what you're going to create, if you don't notice the subtlety of this lesson, early results check, measure your results, reflect on them. Go back to the first part of the entire process of the workbook in session 5. It was about leadership reflection. What's working, what's not working, what's missing, what's next. And we've just created a feedback loop. That's what I would like to see. I've been looking at feedback loops from take action, get results, reflect on what works, what doesn't, to continue getting better. It's a getting better plan. The last thing I'll say about this part is results aren't something you wait for, they're something you track. If you're going to wait for the results to come, they're not going to. Activity does not create accomplishment, especially if it's not the right activity. So in closing, you don't need another idea. You need to execute what you already know. Lead yourself, lead your people, build the plan. Please have a written plan and work the plan, and the results will follow. I don't know how long it will take because some people are further away from the results that they need to, but if there's constant reflection, there's constant pursuit of the plan, all the activities, we're honest with ourselves, then we close the gap between knowing what to do and getting the results. I just want us to close the gap and know what to do, go do it, get the results, and feel great about it. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm actually going to stop the recording for a hot second. And